The fullness of the sound and the murky image, was it like, was that experience like the 14-year-old you?
Is this working? Okay. I mean, we knew they were cheap, and we knew that they were cruddy movies, but we could sit and watch them. It's hard to explain. There was no alternative. It's like you wanted to see a monster movie, so.
You maybe weren't clocking their particular magic spell that you do now.
Yeah, of course now they've got, just if you're looking at, so if you think about, I was describing the fact that they were made like 3 movies in 1 year of just cranking this stuff out, and you see that the scientist guy is the same actor in both movies, and the plot is the same in both movies. Creature gets made, goes out, kills a beautiful girl, gets killed, the end.
So when you went to the drive-in or something, the bigger ones were like, what, Val Lewton movies? What was the...
Sorry, I don't understand.
This was you and your friends, but then when you went to the movies, what was the Hollywood version of the horror movies you were seeing?
Let's see, so I guess by the time I was able to get on a bus and go see movies with my friends, okay, yeah, we probably watch anything. So anything with Charlton Heston in it. Soylent Green, the Omega Man. You probably know more than I do as far as...
What were the horror movies that were scratching that itch for you?
They hadn't made a reemergence yet. There really weren't. There was more science fiction stuff that was out there, but there wasn't that I'm aware of. Because if there was, I would have gone to see it. There would be maybe some Dracula remake or a Hammer film or something, but I wasn't that interested in that.
What years was this?
Like I said, by the time I'd be going out to see movies, I mean, my parents would never have been driving me to a movie to see something like that. So by the time I, was on my own with my friends, it would be like in 1970, 71, 72, 73, yeah, around that era. So I don't know what was being put out by that year.
You weren't seeing did you see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when it came out?
It came out later, didn't it? Yeah.
Herschel Gordon Lewis, those kind of things?
No, those things wouldn't have been shown at a regular theater, and you'd have to kind of go out to, we would go out to drive-ins and see a triple feature, and they were just bad, we were driving out there to be hanging out with girlfriends and stuff like that, but we weren't there to watch a great movie, but it'd be a triple feature with stomach distress bags. I can't remember. I'm trying to think if I can't remember anything.
They didn't make a strong impression on you as
in
the backyard.
Not at all. I'm just trying to think if there's any that come to mind, but off the top of my head, I can't.
A big part of Final Cut is the Last Picture Show.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't include anything that. No,
You didn't want to scream that, but I said
I didn't want to match those two things up.
But what's that movie mean to you?
Well, the movie came out when I was in high school, so I went with my friend and his younger sister, took a bus up to whatever theater in Seattle, and watched that, and it was just devastating. I remember my friend and I and his sister walked out, and we didn't exchange a word for like 20 minutes. We just walked, this long walk down to where we would catch the bus. But it was just stunned. There was just something about the atmosphere and this kind of. I mean, even though it was in this small Texas, it takes place in a small Texas town that's kind of seen better days, and this anyway. There's just something about the characters and there's just this kind of devastating movie to watch.
And it's a 70s movie that was shot in black and white. That was unusual, and it's about his childhood in the 50s.
Right.
So when I read your book, I think, you're doing your book now about being a kid in the 70s. And it's inside a 50s kind of idiom of these horror comics that you're really into, that I feel like is
I I never analyzed my work. I never think of it. I mean, I think it was like those
deep analysis.
Just,
I said it wasn't a deep analysis. That's what the movie's about.
you know what I'm saying is that those elements come. It's sometimes it's bad for artists or cartoonists or anyone to talk about their work. I'm not very good at it.
Well, unfortunately, you're in a situation right now.
I'll try.
Was part of it the nostalgia of the movie? Do you think? But you were a kid, so you wouldn't. Were you a nostalgic kid?
No, it's just that this deep, heartfelt emotion of what the characters are going through. Yeah, so they were, in the movie, they're older than us, a little older than we were, but it's just this deep longing and this kind of, and it's not this, I mean, so there's nothing, you could feel the situation he was going through, even though, or they were going through, even though that wasn't part of my life experience necessarily. So that
It struck you much more than the other movies coming out.
Yeah, I guess so. Being the right age, and that just had that kind of impact on me.
I feel like your mode between the film stills you were talking about and comics is you did a bunch of photo comics.
Yeah, actually, one of the first. So I went to art school, and I just had no idea what I was doing. It's like they didn't offer. You couldn't major in drawing, and you couldn't, so it had to be like painting or printmaking or sculpture. So I thought, I'll do printmaking, that's as close to drawing. And it really isn't. Printmaking is its own thing, and I was terrible at it. I just didn't have the sensibility to work in that medium. So I was always doing my comics on the side. I went to art classes, did my assignments, and then I would go home and work on my comics separately. And it wasn't like I was actually working on them I was making pieces that would be ready for publication because I knew what that was, but I wasn't actively trying to find some outlet at that point. It was more just this thing, what I was working on. And at some point, I kept on doing drawings, and I tried sculpture, and I did a lot of photography. But the first time I was able to actually put together a complete story was a photo comic. I was down in California, and there was a Mexican-American community nearby, and there was grocery stores that would sell Mexican photo comics. And I was just kind of drawn to those. So while I was in school, I think what happened was I had to, since I was planning all the shots out for, you have to get your friends or yourself.
These are not collage. You took the photos.
Yeah, these are just straight photos. So I would have to set up the scene, develop the film. But what it made me do is realize I had to, organize the story in a really concrete way. And that was the first time I was able to do a complete story from beginning to end. I'd always done little pieces of things or ideas, or maybe things more like underground comics where it was more abstract and just images next to images. So it was the first time that was helpful, and then it allowed me to see that, here's a way of piecing together a story.
And were they kind of like black and white, high contrast photos that?
They were just regular photos. Unfortunately, they got printed somewhere. I hope nobody's ever seen them. I should never have let it out in the world, but I did.
Then you did photo comics later too, didn't you? Didn't you do photo comics as almost like I remember you had didn't you do photo comics?
I did a collection of photos that were like juxtaposed, like two images on top of each other. So you have two photos next to each other. They set up a narrative, whether there's a narrative there or not. You have two images and you start comparing them. So I did a book.
I thought you did them kind of as like strips in The Believer or something like that.
Yeah, I did a few, yeah, I forgot. Those, again, nobody's ever seen those either. So there was a section in The Believer that, I think it was curated by Alvin Buenaventura, our friend, or my friend, who's no longer with us. But he had a, so I was doing these just kind of experimental comics, and some of them incorporated photos. I forgot, yeah.
And so we know that you made some movies, but that you don't want to show, that's fine. But was there some collaborative element to that you are glad you don't have in comics now, or you wish
Collaborative, I'm sorry, collaborative.
I guess the collaboration of because movies are collaborative.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, someone was asking about that earlier, and I did an animated movie, and I was really glad I went through the entire process, but I did realize that there was just too many things out of my control. Even though I was working under really good circumstances and people were very attentive and, really wanting my art to be up on that screen, it was still just limitations that were out of my control. So I was really glad to have that experience, but it's not something that I would pursue again.
It was impossible not to watch that first one without thinking about Black Hole inside your context of this teenage destroyed by this disease, and the imagery also, especially in a square ratio, it's like a very strong central image. And I feel like, as I hope you all, the comic covers of Black Hole are gotta be the best comic covers of all time. If someone had to come, what were the best comic covers ever? The covers to Black Hole. And part of it was, they're not like EC Comics. They don't have it's like a strong central image. They're kind of like blacklight posters, but not really, and how they were printed. So, did you have a special mission in those covers? Tell us about those covers.
There was no mission. It was just kind of a sensibility, artistic sensibility that. So, for example, if I could have no lettering on my covers, I would have no lettering. And it's just like one of those commercial things where I have kind of a minimal amount of lettering. I mean, I love kind of classic lettering on comics, and I love that aesthetic, but I also just love the pure imagery. And so that's my approach. Again, like simple central images, symmetry. Yeah, those are things I'm just drawn to, and probably in a more intuitive way more than anything else.
What was there anything that you were thinking of specifically with them, or because they aren't like EC covers, they don't have like a story, and it's always like a really strong central framing.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, I've certainly read all my EC comics and enjoy them, but I wasn't. It's not. They don't relate to that kind of nostalgic vision. And again, I don't know how to explain. Just it's what I like looking at, or what appeals to me, visually.
I don't know, some questions from the audience?
Yeah, you're talking about Black Hole. There's, did you see Rupert